a face tattoo of my dead ex to punish my relatives. My parents died in a car accident 8 months ago and left me their tech company sale profits, which meant I'd never have to work another day in my life. Within 48 hours of the funeral, my entire extended family transformed into financial advisors, who apparently knew exactly what my parents would have wanted me to do with millions of dollars. My aunt started showing up at my apartment every morning with investment portfolios and real estate contracts for her husband's definitely not a pyramid scheme development company. My uncle literally cornered me at the cemetery while we were still burying my mother to pitch his financial planner, who supposedly specialized in grief-based wealth management. Cousins I hadn't seen since middle school suddenly needed to have weekly coffee dates where they'd accidentally bring business proposals for mobile apps that were going to revolutionize industries that didn't need revolutionizing. Every single one of them looked at me like I was a toddler holding a loaded weapon instead of a 28-year-old with a master's degree who could make her own decisions. I walked into my grandmother's house for what I thought was Sunday dinner, but found 12 relatives arranged in a circle with printed PowerPoints and a financial advisor they'd hired to talk sense into me. My aunt stood up and announced, "This is an intervention for your financial future because we can't watch you destroy your parents' legacy." That exact moment, I decided to show them what destruction actually looked like and booked an appointment with a special effects artist who did temporary tattoos for movies. 3 days later, I showed up to family brunch with an enormous black butterfly covering my entire left cheek with Craig Forever, scripted through the wings in cursive letters the size of quarters. Craig had been my ex-boyfriend who died 2 years ago, and everyone knew we'd had the most toxic relationship imaginable, where he'd cheated constantly and stolen my credit cards twice, but apparently death had changed my perspective. The shrieking started before I even sat down as my aunt lunged across the table trying to rub it off with her napkin while screaming, "What did you do to your beautiful face?" I pulled back and announced that since I never needed to work again, I wanted to honor Craig's memory permanently because I'd realized posthumously that he was my soulmate. "The butterfly represents his transformed spirit watching over me," I said, while my grandmother started praying in Italian and my uncle pulled up his phone to call emergency dermatologists. My cousin actually threw up in her mimosa when I mentioned I was also considering getting Craig's social security number tattooed on my forehead for our wedding anniversary. The next 6 weeks became a beautiful nightmare of increasingly desperate interventions, where my family tried everything to save me from myself. My aunt brought 3 different priests to my apartment, including one who specialized in demonic romantic possession, which she was convinced explained my behavior. My uncle tried to have me involuntarily committed for psychiatric evaluation, but the doctor said poor taste in memorial tattoos wasn't grounds for hospitalization. They created a shared spreadsheet tracking my mental state with color-coded concern levels that I know about because my teenage cousin sent me screenshots thinking it was hilarious. My grandmother mailed me $10,000 cash in a shoebox with a note that just said, "Remove it," which seemed silly since I just inherited millions, but I kept it anyway because free money is free money. The absolute peak was when my aunt hired a private investigator to research tattoo removal specialists, and then ambushed me in a grocery store parking lot with a mobile laser removal van she'd rented for the day. "We can fix this right now," she sobbed while the technician stood there confused, holding consent forms I obviously wasn't going to sign. During their 6-week meltdown, I was actually meeting with university administrators to establish a full-ride scholarship program for first-generation engineering students at my parents' alma mater. I'd quietly donated $2 million to create an endowment that would support 20 students every year forever, but my relatives were too busy organizing prayer circles about my face to notice the university emails or the giant ceremony they held to announce the program in my parents' honor. They also missed the part where I was getting my fake tattoo touched up every 2 weeks with special effects makeup to keep it looking fresh while they spiraled deeper into hysteria about my life choices. At Thanksgiving dinner, my aunt started her traditional toast by crying about how my parents would be spinning in their graves if they knew I'd turned myself into a walking memorial to that deadbeat criminal Craig. I stood up slowly and started peeling the latex tattoo off my face while everyone watched in stunned silence. The butterfly came off in pieces that I dropped onto my turkey while my grandmother whispered, "It's a miracle." And my uncle claimed he knew all along, even though he'd literally called Adult Protective Services on himself for failing to protect me. I slid the scholarship documentation across the table with photos from the university ceremony they'd missed because they were too busy planning interventions. I'm helping people who actually deserve it, though somehow Craig still would deserve the tattoo more than the rest of you deserve anything from me. Nobody has mentioned my financial decisions since, and 14 students have already graduated debt-free, but I keep Craig's fake portrait in my wallet just in case anyone forgets their boundaries.